Hello, my name is Voya and welcome to my deep guide, and in today's video we're going to be checking out the Daylight DC-1 device that has been announced almost a month ago. I don't have it here, just so that you guys know, I don't have it yet. I have pre-ordered it and I have been in communication with the Daylight Computers company and trying to secure a review sample, but that's not confirmed or secured or anything like that. So it's an ongoing thing. I don't have any guarantees when or if I'm gonna get it before the pre-order comes or when the pre-order is gonna come. So I don't know those things. I'm just letting you know how the process is right now. But in the meantime, I wanted to check out and do just a check what the Daylight DC-1 computer is all about. Before we proceed, I invite you to go to mydeepguide.com/shop, where you can find MDO, My Daily Organizer 2024 and newly released 2025 and 2026, and that is a hyperlinked PDF file that is perfect for organizing your life, be it your personal or professional life, because it helps you organize your yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily needs. You can also find the My Deep Guide meeting planner, which is also a hyperlinked PDF file, but this one helps you centralize, simplify, and organize all of your meeting planning needs. Now, these are not apps, they are hyperlinked PDF files, and the beauty of it is that they will work on any device that supports handwriting on hyperlinked PDF files, and that, from what I've seen at least on the demos, should include the DC-1 quite comfortably. So yeah, I think that both MDO and MDG have a high probability to work perfectly normally on the DC-1 as well. If you're interested to learn more about either of these products, check out the linked playlist in the description below, where you can find more videos and more information on either or both of these products. So first, let's check out what it is that they say and how they present their product. Alright, so let's check out first the presentation of the Daylight DC-1, how they are presenting the product, what they are saying that it is, and what the focus actually is. And right from the get-go, we can actually see that they're actually calling it the computer de-invented, not reinvented, but simplifying the computer itself. Meet the DC-1, a new kind of computer designed for deep focus and well-being. We can actually see some similarities to the language and the marketing approach, at the very least, with the Remarkable. So we can see that this is probably going to be focused on simplicity, focus, distraction-free, and all of that kind of stuff, but with some different accents, I would imagine. So as I start sliding here, okay, so it is a backlit device that is also fully reflective in daytime. We refuse to accept future with our devices are exhausting, addictive, and distracting. Okay, so I wish at this point I'm just trying to get to the specifications. Everything that they show here is interesting. I find quite a lot of these things interesting, and it remains to be seen how this actually translates in real life. But let's just kind of see a little bit more. So you can do reading, you can do note-taking, and you can do writing or typing. And one of the trade-offs I think it's called the Daylight screen technology, is it doesn't have bistability. So that means that it constantly has to refresh things, because essentially it is, at the core of it, it is an LCD screen, so it has to refresh constantly. It cannot retain an image. Okay, now here's the thing, it's not just an amber glow, it does have white lights, LEDs as well for the backlight, but they do recommend using the amber because the white light comprises out of blue wavelength as well, which is said to be harmful for circadian rhythms and people who are sensitive to artificial lights. But just for those who are wondering, it's not just amber light. You do have that control, the option, but they highly recommend sticking to amber light only. Here we go. If you go in the bottom here and then you go to product, not home, then you get display software and device. All right, so we have 60 frames per second, no ghosting, and 10.5-inch display here. Paper-like finish on top, although we can see quite a bit of reflections under angles here. Software is using Android 13, but it has their own kind of simplification of the Android 13, and they're calling it Soul OS. And that's basically focused a distraction-free operating system with everything you need and nothing you don't. So, intentional simplicity. Soul OS is a custom Android OS carefully crafted to minimize distractions with a clean, intuitive interface that keeps you in the flow. We built what we think is the world's best PDF reader. Cool. That is genuinely interesting to see. That would be fun to see. Flip through pages and write notes in the margins, just like in a real book. All your content in one place, integrates with all of your cloud services to deliver a unified reading and annotating experience for your content library. Cool. So it seems that the annotations do synchronize across cloud libraries. That would be interesting to see how it actually translates in reality. Your favorite third-party apps, okay, install anything available on Android. It doesn't really specifically say that that you do have a Google Play Store, so we will see if you need to sideload things or does it actually have a Google Play Store. And then we get to the hardware specifications. In the box you get comfy case, the device itself, action buttons for quick access and page turns, customizable, okay, extended battery life to last you days on a single charge, and Wacom stylus. Yay, not a capacitive stylus, so that's very promising. With a button, even better. Removable tips for an always fresh writing experience, doesn't need to be charged. Great. That is good. And then we have finally, okay, so this is where the specifications are. So 10.5 live paper display with 190 dpi or ppi. That is a worry. What I do know is that 190 ppi may be too low. It may be too low for quite a few people. And I know that personally this worries me because one of the main gripes that I have with the Books Tab X that I have and love is the low PPI resolution, which is 207 PPI, and that is even higher than this. And I constantly react to the low image density on that device. So that is something that doesn't look that great, but we will see how it actually translates with this type of display technology. Maybe it's fine. Pure amber backlight, optional with DC dimming, no PWM or pulse width modulation. So that means that the dimming of the backlight is achieved through DC current dimming, not through blinking and or frequency dimming. Wacom EMR passive stylus, absolutely awesome. Performance, so we have 8 GB of RAM, which is quite good, 128 GB of storage. It's using a MediaTek Helio G99 CPU. That's a good CPU, but MediaTek CPUs or SoCs do have some compatibility problems, not a lot, but they do have some compatibility problems with some applications. That compatibility stuff, that was some time ago, so we will see in reality if maybe all of that has been mended in the meantime, so we'll see. But it's something that when I read this specification, it's like, oh, that's something to keep in mind. And a massive battery of 8,000 milliamps. Now that's gonna add weight, definitely, but I guess it needs such a massive battery because it's not an electrophoretic display. It doesn't have bistability, so it's gonna need to update that display 60 times a second, no matter what it is that you're doing, whether the display is static or not. It's gonna have to update it all the time. We have Wi-Fi 6 connectivity, Bluetooth 5 connectivity, USB Type-C with PD, micro SD slot, cool. Pogo pins, very cool, because that means that maybe if things are good, they will introduce some accessories. So that's kind of cool to see. Maybe like a full-on typewriter kind of thing. Kind of would be fun. Weight 550 grams. That's a lot. That's really a lot, but you can't not have a lot with an 8,000 milliamp battery. So that's going to be a weighty device. Stereo speakers, microphone, customizable action buttons. It would help if it would say like how many buttons are there. And software is Android 13. All right, so that is the device. So currently all of the batches are sold out. So that's something to, yeah, definitely keep in mind. The price is actually $730 when it was possible to pre-order it. So not a cheap device by any means. Okay, so that's the overview of what the Daylight DC-1 is, or what they say it is. Alright, so that's what they are saying about the DC-1, and that's how they presented it and what they want it to be. I was able to actually get an interview with Anjan, which is the founder and CEO of Daylight Computers, and we had a little chat about the DC-1, what it is, what it's not, things like that. And you're going to be able to see the whole interview, but just a little introduction on the interview itself. While I have prepared to the best of my ability to make everything work as seamless as possible, the day was a very specific one, and I should have taken a hint that on that Tuesday, I believe it was a Tuesday, the way it started, I fell down a rock, injured myself slightly. There was a backup mishap. There was lots of stuff just going on and on and on and on. And by the time I've gotten to the interview, maybe I should have taken a hint that maybe this is not the best day to actually do a technical kind of thing. And despite me making all the preparations and checks, when we started the interview, the sound recording didn't work for some reason. Okay, so I said, okay, then we can switch to internal recording of the Google Teams, because that's what we were using, because it does have the option. Unfortunately, on either end, that didn't work either. Okay, then we switched to Zoom, and finally it started to work, and we were able to capture. So my apologies for the video quality out of the get-go. Those are the conditions that were there, but there was one more mishap to happen, of course, mid-interview. But let's start with the first part of the interview now. Yep. Thank you for joining and for the opportunity to explore the Daylight DC-1. So before we encounter technical difficulties, my first thing was I just want to repeat it because I think it's important that I'm happy to see when a dream or a vision comes true. And basically my first question was, how happy are you with the reception of DC-1 so far, and what has the experience been so far?
It's amazing. I mean, you work on something in the shadows. For me, I've been working on this since June 2018, and it's not because of some trend. It's not because of AI. It's because of my eye strain. It's because of my want to have distraction-free computers. It's because of my want to have computers I can use outside in the sun. They're all just personal problems of mental and physical health. So you never know when you do something just for yourself, whether anybody else would want it. It's very validating.
That's cool to see. All right, so because time is limited and I know you are busy, I wanted to kind of just jump into some technical nitty-bitty thingies that make the Daylight DC-1 specific, and also address some of the questions and uncertainties that I've seen around the live paper display technology. So if it's okay with you, is that okay with you? Yeah, all right. So basically, I first wanted to tackle the live paper display and what it is not and what it is. So I wanted to go through a couple of really simple questions. So the first one is like, does live paper display DC-1 in DC-1 have any kind of ink particles or not?
No, this is like a common misconception people have.
Yeah.
Is they seem to think e-paper means e-ink. But e-ink actually means electrophoretic displays, or EPDs, which are a subset of the overall display category called e-paper. And so the core aspect of an e-paper display is that it reflects light and tries to do so in paper-like fashion. And so I think that is like the core kind of confusion, is e-ink is not a screen technology. It's actually a brand of it's a brand of electrophoretic display. And so essentially our project was trying to create an e-paper display that had some of the core flaws of electrophoretic displays or e-ink solved with some trade-offs, in the hope of getting what I wanted, which was a more general purpose reflective display computer.
Okay. So the second thing that also is posed, well, it's just a transflective LCD. Well, to my understanding, from what I've seen, I've tested my fair share of transflective and reflective LCDs, and
Yeah.
my thing when I reading those kind of comments is like, well, wait a minute. LCDs are liquid crystal displays with 16.7 millions of colors. This is a monochromatic display, and this seems like a gating on-off kind of thing, and it didn't really seem like an LCD thing to me. But let's just get it out. Is this a transflective or a reflective LCD type of panel or a variation of it?
Well, there's a kind of there's a misconception in even what you're saying. The core questions to ask about a display that defines it as ePaper or like a normal LCD is what's known as a transmissive or emissive display.
Yes.
What a reflective LCD is a type of ePaper because what you're doing is you're using a matte reflector to create your white state and then you're reflecting light. The
Yeah.
difference between a normal electrophoretic display and a reflective LCD is the black state in a reflective LCD is created using polarized light and flipping a liquid crystal. But in an EPD display, the black state is caused by a black particle. And so the core advantages of EPD versus a transflective or reflective display is bistability, pure Lambertian diffusion, which is 180-degree viewing angle. And you could argue because of the improvements of e-ink over time, it has a pure white state. And so we could play around with the terminology.
Yeah. But
yes,
yeah, the reflective
technically
it is transflective. So it has transflective elements because it leads me to the second or the third question, which is,
well, if you want me to answer you more directly, it's basically what we did is we solved what we thought were the core challenges of what made reflective LCDs. And transflective is simply a reflective LCD with
one way.
with holes for backlight. Transflective and transmissive are two different things. Your iPad is a transmissive LCD, which is not ePaper. That is not ePaper. That is an emissive display. No, but a reflective LCD that then also has holes for a backlight, or is called transflective, that is ePaper. And so what we did is we finally, the same way e-ink improved upon electrophoretic displays enough, we felt like what we did is we have 3 patents. We spent years developing it, trying to solve the core difficulties of reflective or transflective displays. And so that's what LivePaper is our unique technologies to kind of make what we feel is the first, competitive transflective or reflective LCD.
Okay, so when we're talking about that ties me into the backlight, which is, of course, flicker-free, which is a great thing to see because it's important for the eye health, and it's amber light. Some people are going to be okay with that or not. It's a choice. That's the way I'm looking at it. This was a choice that you guys made, and this is what the product is, and then people can...
Well, we actually have a multiplex backlight, so you can choose it to be pure amber, but you can also choose it to be also white LEDs as well.
All right. So it is actually adjustable color hue. It just doesn't have the blue color hue.
Well, the white LEDs do have blue. So if you want blue light free, it's because we have the full amber. It's just some people find full amber to be a little strong. And so what you can do is that we invented our own backlight, which has 2 different types of LEDs, amber and white. And the white LEDs have blue light. So we advise you turn it off and just use pure amber if you want no blue light.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind mixing it,
then people do have that choice.
That's right. Yeah.
That's good to know. So is it a pure backlight that's behind the panel, or is it a backlight that's on basically a side backlight, if you know what I mean? Because you do have some side backlights that point into a reflection and then reflect things back. Or is it a front light? But I guess this is a backlight of sort.
So basically what it is you have a reflector, and so you can completely just use it in pure reflective mode. But one of our core things is we found a way to micro-perforate it. So most of the time you have a huge drop in reflectance when you make something transflective. but ours is actually still very high reflectance in spite of having a backlight. And so that's one of our core competitive advantages. And so what it is it's a side-mounted backlight behind the reflector, and then there's tiny holes in the reflector to then allow that light to come through. Okay. So it's side-mounted, to answer your question.
All right. So one of the questions here was also regarding the labeling of ePaper and stuff, but I think that you've covered that really, really well.
Yeah. So if you, for example, go to SID Display Week, the plenum or the whole track will be called ePaper displays, and underneath it will be presentations from e-ink about electrophoretic displays. There'll be presentations from other people about electrophoretic. There'll be others on electrowetting displays. And then reflective LCD is one of them as well. And so I think this is a core misconception. People think ePaper equals e-ink, and that's just not the case. So you can even look up the seminal textbook on this by Wiley. It's called ePaper Displays, and it goes through, the many, many different ePaper technologies.
Yeah, I know that, but there's going to be a certain amount of population who's going to see like the small e, and then it's automatically ink. And then, but it's, for me, I think it's an interesting thing to actually see more and more of this kind of alternative technologies to the traditional LCDs, LEDs, and OLEDs coming up. And basically, like any emergent technology, nomenclature will have to change and adapt, and we have to learn new words and things like that.
My motivation was like to basically, wow, okay, I love e-ink. I love my Kindle. I bought every single one, Boyu, Sony's, Remarkables, Daesung's. I owned them all. And I was frustrated. I was not able to actually do my workflow. So I sat down and said, okay, what are the salient parts about e-ink that I so desire? And in the form factor.
Yeah, that's the part where the crowning part of the day that it was that there was a power outage then, right in the middle of the interview. So of course the camera cut out, the internet cut out, everything cut out. I had to think really fast on my feet because I could not take more of Anjan's time. I mean, he was really, really accommodating to actually go past the allotted schedule time and to be understanding about the technical difficulties that were already there. And it was just like, how can so many things happen at the same time, all the time? But still, I whipped up my phone, put it into a hotspot, and then rehooked, and then it kind of worked. But the remainder of the interview, I'm in less than optimal lighting conditions, shall we say. So let's resume.
The core part of e-ink that really mattered to me was the lack of eye strain, the ability to use it in the sun, the fact that it felt like less distracting. Like there's just like, it's the black and white, the paper likeness. I think there's something deep about being a reflective display rather than an emissive display to our physiology and psychology. And so my goal was to basically capture those salient points for a knowledge worker, not necessarily for my Kindle workflow, but for a tablet and laptop and so on, a monitor, and basically solve the refresh rate problem, and then the ghosting contrast loss problem, and the difficulty with software. There's a lot of software firmware difficulty with conventional electrophoretic displays, the lookup tables, the waveforms. And so it's very, very difficult to make sophisticated stuff with that. And so that was kind of what our project was, is we started by hacking on the Remarkable and other electrophoretic displays, and then we eventually felt like you were stopped in material science from truly solving those. And I basically spent 2 years and I felt like there was new material science innovations that finally, after almost 3 decades, made reflective LCD viable as an ePaper technology.
Cool. I think so that's really good to hear, because it's going to be interesting to see actually how it performs in real life. So I'm looking forward to actually getting hands on my pre-order unit. So before we go, just a couple of really short confirmations. You said that it's Android 13 underneath the Sol OS, which is of course the simplification of the system. One question, 2 questions regarding Android. Is it does it support Google Play Store and services, or is it a certified device? Great.
Cool.
And does it have the any kind of plan, or do you know how much of the Android upgradability will it have? Is it stuck on 13, or will it have upgrades further on?
We're still investigating, but the intention is to try to upgrade.
Okay, cool. And yeah, basically just to wrap up, where would you like to see DC-1 in 1 year's time from now on?
I think there's kind of 3 core use cases I think about it. One is as an intense knowledge worker, I was frustrated with my Remarkable. It's very hard to do searching, typing, scrubbing, scrolling, selecting. There's a lot of things I do with the kind of slow refresh rate. And so it never quite was able to be what I wanted in terms of, an ultimate knowledge work computer. So I think one is I hope for academics, for executives, for engineers, for scientists, for readers, for people who read nonfiction, we hopefully are finally the good enough ePaper computer for being able to do intense amount of reading and writing and knowledge work, reading, writing, thinking, so to speak. I think the second one is a lot of people who have eye strain or concussions or PTSD or are sensitive to blue light and sleep or have insomnia or circadian rhythms, the kind of like the need for a healthier computer is not necessarily very practical to do a lot of computing tasks on conventional e-ink, even on a books or something like that. And so, some things are not going to be possible because of lack of color, but based in our testing and experience, quite a bit of computing can be offloaded. And so for people who there really is no other option, I think the second market is we can hopefully play a role as a healthier computer, an eye strain free, blue light free computer. And the third is, I think for a lot of parents, they want basically a healthier, safer iPad. And I think that the advantages of the refresh rate and the lack of ghosting is Khan Academy can work pretty well. Beast Academy, Brilliant.org, all these educational games. And so there's hopefully a year from now, there'll be a lot of parents buying the Daylight for their kids as a kind of healthier, safer computer. And hopefully this gets a real societal conversation that, hey, we don't need to be trapped with our transmissive or emissive displays. We don't need to be trapped in these overstimulating, cages and then say, oh, technology sucks. Hopefully it's possible to have this kind of alternative conceptions of what a tablet and hopefully a laptop and a phone could sell and look on. So, okay. I can't hear you. Oh. You're muted. I still can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
There. Now, okay? Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yes.
I definitely hear you about this, but I think that $730 is going to be maybe an obstacle for some people at this point because it's an emerging technology.
Totally. Totally. And we make very little money. It's not like we chose 730 because we're like, oh, we could charge people this amount of that. No. We were actually doing our pre-orders at $1,200 privately first, and so we try to choose the lowest price we can. It's just kind of like any new technology at low scale, the prices are very high. So that's just absolutely the reality. Okay, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the patience with the incredible amount of technical difficulties, and I'm ending in the dark, right? With the power out. This is amazing, very memorable. Thank you so much for everything for the community. I think you play a central role in making it possible for more people to realize this is a way to be able to relate to a computer. Seriously, thank you so much. It's made such a big difference to my life to be able to use reflective displays, and I'm so glad others, hopefully through your work, get exposed to that.
Thank you very much. It's weird for me. It's really nice to kind of hear that. It's kind of weird because I started with like, hey, maybe I find this interesting. I'll just share it. I can't find info anywhere, and here we are today in the dark room, and you in San Francisco, but still. Anyway, best of luck and thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so that was the interview, and despite the technical difficulties, I'm very thankful for the patience and understanding that Anjan had that to accommodate, actually to complete this whole thing, despite it being such a mess. But at least we have this, and I think that there's important clarifications here regarding their device, and for me at least there was quite a few important things to understand this device better and their vision and their goal better, so that I can look at it from that perspective as well. Of course, I'm going to look at the device from as many perspectives as I can, but I think it's always important to look at the device from the creator's perspective as well. Then it's best to understand what was the intention behind it. So what are my takes on the DC-1 especially after the interview? I think that the main thing that we have to talk about here is the classification of the live paper display as an ePaper display. My take on that is that this is not a clear-cut situation. Yes, it is absolutely relying on the reflective properties in order to display the content to the user, and that is one of the most important ePaper classifications for a display to be characterized as an ePaper. However, it does lack several really important specifications that an ePaper should be. First and foremost should be bistability. And the second one is it does not have a wide viewing angle. And that is also an important one for an ePaper display classification. If you do a research, you will find some resources that will classify reflective LCD panels as ePapers. Some will not classify them as such. Some will put them in their category on their own. That's basically what I meant when I was talking to Anjay, when I mentioned that we lack the nomenclature and we lack the language to actually express all of these things. So currently I think that the whole thing is a little bit unclear, but personally I'm not 100% convinced that this type of technology should be classified as an ePaper thing, mainly because it lacks the wide viewing angle and it doesn't have bistability. That's my own personal take on this whole thing, but I do understand why the reflectivity would be the most important aspect of a display technology for it to be classified as an ePaper thing. So I'm interested to hear what your take is on this. This is my take and my understanding. Another advantage of a true ePaper or electrophoretic displays is basically the ultra low power consumption, which is there because of that bistability. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the screen rearranges once to display an image, and then you can actually disconnect the display from the power source, and that image is going to stay there, well, forever, right? So it's not going to rearrange, while any variation at all of an LCD type of display, which live paper display technology is, requires that it's constantly refreshed, and in this case it's refreshed 60 times per second. And that, of course, is going to mean a higher battery consumption than an ePaper display. So in that aspect as well, live paper doesn't fully mesh with the expectations and classifications of an ePaper display as far as the power consumption goes. It remains to be seen when I receive the device and do actual tests how it actually performs, but as we've seen, it has an 8000 milliamp battery and we expect days of battery life from it, and that doesn't really coincide with the battery performance and ultra low consumption of electrophoretic displays or e-ink displays. Now, some would argue, well, what about the Boox BSR devices? They have an e-ink screen, so electrophoretic display, but they also gobble up the battery time like really quickly, and you can expect only days of battery life on those devices instead of weeks, as you would on other e-ink devices. I would counter that argument by simply saying, yes, that is true, but the main power consumer in those devices is the BSR technology, or the dedicated GPU that is doing deghosting and refreshing and all that kind of stuff. So it's the BSR technology that's consuming the battery there, not the display itself. And here we're talking about the display technology being the one that is power hungry or not, in order for it to classify as an ePaper type of display or not. The rest of the talking points that we've covered in the interview, I think, were fairly clear and they don't need an additional kind of thing. But this ePaper classification, I felt that I needed to address it a little bit more with my own personal take and opinion on this, on this matter. Personally, I think that the Daylight DC-1 is an interesting device for sure. And I'm very happy to actually see that a lot of people are interested in it, and it's really good to see that all of the pre-orders are now kind of gone. So obviously they're doing some stuff right. So that's a good thing to see, especially for a startup that's trying to do these things. As far as I'm concerned, I really appreciate the enthusiasm and the bravery needed to actually go into a venture like this. Personally, I find the DC-1 device interesting, but not that exciting. Here's the reason why, and this is 100% subjective and personal. One of the main things about the DC-1 is that it has 60 frames per second, right? And combines the daylight reflectivity, readability there. And 60 frames per second is nice, absolutely nice. But when I'm looking at the devices of this type, that is never or has never been an absolute requirement for me. That's not something that's like a priority over other things. Why? Well, mainly because if I'm looking for something that requires 60 FPS or more as a refresh rate, well, then I'm also going to be relying and requiring color display, but furthermore, color accuracy and color consistency under any environmental circumstances, and none of these technologies can actually give me that because they are not meant to do that, right? They are meant to give you the sense that it's part of the environment. So those two things don't really mesh well together for my own personal needs. If I'm looking for an ePaper-like device, I have a fully different set of priorities that I'm looking for, such as bistability, matte surface of the screen to minimize the reflections and distractions of the reflections from the content that is displayed underneath, no front light, good contrast, wide viewing angle, and minimal surface to screen distance. And as far as I understand it, the Daylight DC-1 technology is basically the complete opposite of that. It doesn't really prioritize any of those things, and that is the reason why I find it interesting but not exciting, right? From a just purely subjective point of view. The way I understand the DC-1 as a device, especially after the interview with Anjan, is basically that DC-1 is supposed to be a simplified, distraction-free version, more health-oriented version of an iPad tablet. So something that provides a lot of functionalities and comfort levels, but also health benefits, distraction-free focus, and things like that. And when I actually came to understand that and look at it from that perspective, a lot of things started to actually make a lot more sense, including the design, which at first I was like, why such a wide bezel? Why so old school-ish kind of a thing? Until then I looked at it after the interview, and then I was like doing some tests, MDO testing on the iPad here, and then I saw like, oh, this is the same type of design, especially the older iPad that I do have, not the modern ones. Then it's like, okay, so now I get it. So for me, that basically realization of looking at the device from that perspective, suddenly a lot more things made a lot more sense. So, in summary, I think that the Daylight DC-1 is a brave attempt at something slightly different, and I think that it's definitely going to be, at the very least, very interesting to see how this device performs in real life and in reality, because there are so many fine nuances that it depends on, like how it will perform and how usable it will be in reality, that I can't really venture a guess further from this point, because a lot of this stuff is supposed to be a new type of technology and a new type of experience. So I want to keep an open mind and see what it's like when I get to have a first-hand experience, and then bring you that kind of view, so to try and be as unbiased as I possibly can be. I hope that you found the video and the interview informative and or interesting, despite the numerous technical difficulties that were behind it. If you did, please like and subscribe and ding the notification bell in the description below to get notified when new videos come out on My Deep Guide. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye!